So, hi, Gary.
Same-sex is an older term. We in marriage equality in New York are now using gender neutral because the definition of someone's sexuality and sexual identity has been changing over time. So there are, as this example, there's a couple who were married in 1998, a man and a woman, and he had a sex change operation, so he's now a woman. And his former wife decided to stay in the relationship for love and commitment and responsibility, and she found that was more of what she wanted than the identity of her partner. So this man became legally a woman, and in their state, they are still married because her sexual identity is not necessarily what drives the marriage covenant or the rules. However, if they were to move to another state, they might not be married.
Right.
So we are moving to gender-neutral marriage as the terminology.
Okay. So what is your view on gender-neutral marriage?
I believe, and as part of Marriage Equality New York, our desire and belief that marriages should be between any two people who want to have all the benefits and commitments and responsibilities that a marriage has, regardless of the gender of the couple.
What is your organization's mission?
Our mission is to educate and inform the public on what a marriage is and why it's important from a civil rights perspective to give this to all individuals. Our objective, and obviously I have my own crib notes, just to give you, Marriage Equality in New York, we began in 1998. It's an all-volunteer, all-inclusive organization. Our mission is to educate the public, to raise awareness of the important rights people have legally by getting married, and that we want and believe this should be regardless of the individual's sexual identity.
What steps are you or your organization taking to see your position?
Sure. There are a lot of steps. Right now, the main focus of this is a legislative push. So let me back up a couple of minutes, is that okay? In New York State, there was a lawsuit brought in 2004. It's the Hernandez versus Robles, and it was because the mayor of New Paltz, New York, had married same-sex couples. So I will use that term because that's appropriate at times as well. And through several gyrations of this, it eventually ended up in the Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in New York State. And that court ruled that the New York State Constitution does not grant same-sex marriages. It does not have codified in our Constitution, and since marriages are a state-level issue, every state has its own definition of marriage, though they are pretty much the same. There are differences. But the New York State Constitution does not identify gender-neutral same-sex marriages. So in the decision from 2004-2005, the court said these are not valid marriages, and legislature is the place to take this issue to. It wasn't the end of the discussion, but it was the end of that timing or that round of arguments. It now needed to move to the state legislature, which is the Assembly and the House, the Assembly and the Senate, which is similar to, the framework of Congress. We have the two legislative branches in New York State and the governor. In 2007, the New York State Assembly passed a gender-neutral law, but that's only half. You now need to get the Senate. The Senate in 2007 and up until the 2008 election was Republican-dominated, and the Republicans generally are not for this issue. So it never came to a vote in the Senate. So in the ways the government works, if one body passes it and the other doesn't, it dies at the end of the year and it has to come back again. So if you're following what's going on, in a week ago, Tuesday, the New York State Assembly passed the bill again. It now is going to the Senate. Whether it comes to the floor of the Senate, which is now run by the Democrats, Malcolm Smith is the Senate leader, whether he brings it to the floor, whether there are enough votes, we don't know. If it does get through and get passed by the Senate, it then goes to the governor, and Governor Patterson has said he supports this. He actively supports this. So it will become law if and when it's passed by the Senate and then the governor signs it. So New York is, we believe, one of the next states. We obviously, we're focused on marriage equality in New York. New Jersey is one of the ones we think is going to be as well next. Rhode Island is probable. If you ever look at the history of civil rights issues, New England tends to be a rather progressive area.
So is New York State close to the election?
We think it is. It's certainly closer than a lot of other states. There are many states. There are 28 of them that actually have laws on their books now that forbid gender-neutral marriages. And we look at this as it's a continuing struggle, and we look at this as a civil rights struggle, a discrimination issue, because the person you love, regardless of gender, should be the person you want to be with, and you should have all the rights and benefits, including housing, insurance, medical care, medical decision-making, raising a child. So if you two got married, if you two couldn't get married, and you had a child, you wouldn't have the same rights as if you were married. Because in New York State, when a couple is married, regardless of who has the child, both parents are the full legal guardians of that child and have full rights. If you were to have the child and this is not your spouse, and you decided you didn't like her hair color one day, it's like you just put her bags outside. You have no recourse. You have no way to protect yourself. But if you're married, you do. As well, the children. And there are 1,324 of these rights in New York State that a marriage brings. So the push now in New York State is legislatively as different than several months ago Iowa, where the marriage, same-sex, gender-neutral marriage is now legal in Iowa, but that came through the court ruling. And the court ruling in Iowa was a unanimous Supreme Court, that's the law, the highest court in Iowa, and their position was the state constitution of Iowa does not specifically exclude gender-neutral marriages, and there is no benefit to the state to not do this. So therefore they overturned the no on same-sex marriage issue.